and today we're going to be talking about how to improve your aim dramatically and just a couple easy tips. So today we're going to be going over 3 tips that help me improve my aim a lot and that help me have really good aim. So let's get right into the video. Let's talk about the first tip. So first tip is probably one of the most important tips. I think all 3 of these tips are important, but this one is almost at the top of the list, right next to recoil control. This tip is where you're actually aiming. So where you want to be aiming is center of mass or upper chest. So just the chest area in general. I like to aim upper chest, shoulders, because it bounces up and you're able to get a couple nice headshots out of it, but that's just if you have really good recoil control. So one thing you have to note is that a lot of times weapons will not only have vertical recoil, but they will have horizontal recoil as well. So as you can see here, the R99 has a little bit, and I know for a fact that the R301 has a lot of weird horizontal recoil. So you have to be able to kind of correct that, but if you're aiming in a certain spot, it's going to correct it on its own. And what I mean by that is no recoil control at all, right? Just by aiming at his sternum or his lower chest or just center of mass. You're going to hit a significant amount more than whereas if you were aiming at the head or if you're aiming at like his arm or something, you're going to miss most of your shots. So you want to kind of square up with him, aim right here, right at his sternum, and no recoil control, I'm hitting 150. That's without even me touching my analog stick. So where you aim definitely affects how good your aim is going to be. And personally, I really like aiming at his shoulders and neck area because then I'm able to consistently land headshots, and with my really good control and stabilization, I'm able to melt people extremely quickly, as you can tell. So that brings me to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is recoil control. And that basically means pulling your mouse down or pulling your analog stick down. I play on PlayStation, so it's my right analog stick that I pull down, and you pull it down to make your aim not move. As you can see here, no barrel stabilizer. The dot doesn't move that much. Right there, you can see it again. Just pulling it down makes a world of a difference. As you can see here, this is pulling it down. Oh, I accidentally uncrouched. We'll kill him real quick. So this is me pulling it down, and this is me not, oh sorry, I started way too high there. This is me not touching it. So obviously you guys should know, if you played a lot of first-person shooters in the past, that you should be kind of trying to pull down the analog stick, but you don't want to overdo it, and you want to start micro-correcting. And what I mean by that is if it jumps to the right, if it jumps to the left, you're going to want to make these little corrections. So if it jumps to the right like that, you're going to want to be able to try to snap back on and be able to correct that mistake, so that way you're always prepared for the many variables that can happen during these actual real fights, because these are dummies, and in real games people move fast, people strafe, and it could be a lot harder to hit them. So you want to be ready to flick onto people and be able to track them while fixing any little mistakes that are made. So if you see by these examples, you know, it's definitely a lot easier to hit, especially at range. At range, you're going to notice these little kicks a lot more than you normally would on a target that's right there. You're going to hit that every single time. Whereas a target that's far away, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. When it kicks to the right and left a little bit, it's going to be harder to control, because it's going to kick you away from the target, which is very small. So those small kicks are going to move you a very long distance away from the target. So being able to correct that very quickly is going to be your best bet. So as you can see here, no barrel stabilizer. Obviously the gold one makes it a little bit easier, but with recoil control, I mean, it doesn't even matter. As you can see there, I just hit 242 on this target, like it was nothing. So you can almost be your own barrel stabilizer by just pulling down the analog stick a little bit. So that brings us to my next tip, and the next tip is going to be, actually we're going to throw a little bonus tip in here, and the bonus tip is going to be strafing while aiming. I personally really strafe a lot while I'm aiming. I like to throw a crouch in there too, but this can mess up your aim. It can be very difficult to do this at the same time, and I usually only crouch and strafe spam when I'm not aiming, because it kind of messes up your aim while you're aiming in and crouch spamming. It can be a little bit of a disaster. So if you're just going back and forth in short strides, you are going to minimize the damage done to your aim, and you can actually make the strafing work for you a lot of the times and helping you correct the actual aiming and the jumping around. Sometimes I throw a crouch in there just because crouching kind of improves your accuracy a little bit, I think. So yeah, that's just a little small tip I have, is make crouching or make strafing work for you rather than work against you, because a lot of people will, you know, strafe a lot and they'll actually mess up their aim. So I like to do short movements left to right to a point where my body's moving and shifting very rapidly, but my aim, as you can see, never leaves his body. It's going to be very difficult for him to hit me, especially if I throw one of these in there, whereas for me, he's just going to get lasered. So the third and final tip is your settings and your optic of choice. And what I mean by this is, I personally love the HCOG Classic. I think it's very minimalist, and I think that the little red dot is not really overbearing. It's not clunky, and I think it feels very free and extremely precise, which allows me to hit almost a majority of my shots most of the time. So it's all personal preference, honestly. I really do live by the HCOG Classic. I use it on every single weapon, unless it's a sniper, obviously, and the only time I ever use the digital threat is on a Peacekeeper. Overall, I love the HCOG Classic, but if you really like the digital threat, then use the digital threat. In my opinion, it's just a little bulky, and I don't like how constrictive it feels, but it is all personal preference at the end of the day. And that's one thing you have to realize when talking about aim, is that it is what is comfortable. I think 90% of aiming is comfortability. I've been using very similar sensitivity for as long as I've been gaming, and it has never been detrimental to my aim in any way, even across all types of first-person shooter games. So I think finding what's comfortable is the best way. I mean, as you guys saw me one clip that thing before, like 242 consistently with no barrel stabilizer. Right here, I play on 4.4, no advanced look control. So if you're looking for like a secret meaning or a button to press that makes your aiming an aimbot, you're not going to find it in settings. I think that's kind of like a misconception that settings are going to make you much better. Whereas if your current settings are not optimized for you, it could be very bad for you, and finding new settings would be beneficial. But overall, I think a lot of aiming and sensitivity has to do with, you know, actually being comfortable. So those are the 3 tips I have for today. I hope they're able to help. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you next time.